David, you're on.
Oh, thank you very much.
Just tell me when you want the magic finger.
I'm going to do that. So everyone, thank you very much. This is going to be potentially quite hilarious. If you press a magic finger now, please, Patrick, we'll get to hear what I'm talking about, what is made in AI. Now, I've called this session Don't Shoot the Messenger because I'm very aware of my audience in the room today. And there's a lot of pushback against AI, and rightly so. You know, it's not coming after our jobs. It's coming after our industries. That's how pervasive artificial intelligence can be. Finger press 3 times, please. So I'm going to talk about how AI is changing the creative industry, my experiment I've been doing with AI and why that came about, and a little bit of room for questions and answers. And one more time, please, Patrick, and that will explain who I am. I am David Sloly, a massive Gen AI geek. I've always been into anything to do with artificial intelligence, and generative AI is where I find my my happy place. And so what is Gen AI? Let's have one more press, please. And of course, I'm blessed I can't see any of my notes, so you're gonna hear it all raw now. So generative AI is taking a text input and generating from that either a visual, an audio, or some kind of output based on the prompts that we've put in. That's what generative AI is. And it uses a database that's been pre-populated with similar ideas to draw its inspiration from. What it's looking for is patterns. It's basically looking for patterns and regular and similarities. So you say, create me a picture of a pigeon. It's looking at all pictures of pigeons it has, and it will bring something up for you. However, and I'll stress this later on, the prompt is what it's all about. If you ask for a particular type of pigeon, facing a particular way, looking in a particular direction, then it will start to take the general picture of a pigeon and start to build out the output, that generative output, based on the prompt you've given it. Let's move to the next slide. So we'll fire up. If you press again, I'm hoping it will fire this up. Yeah. So this is we all know Midjourney. So this is Midjourney going through a prompt that is detailed. And I had the privilege of seeing a Kathakali dancer in India a few years ago. It was something I always wanted to do. Watching a stage show where the story is told using facial expressions only. I was fascinated by that. But you'll see the prompt I'm putting in here. Whilst it's going through that process, I thought I'd just take a moment to tell you what's happening in AI right now. A couple of stories. Microsoft's AI-enhanced battery material identified a novel solid-state electrolyte that reduced lithium usage. So they used AI to go through all 32 million different candidates that could replace lithium in batteries, and it selected the most likely ones to do it. And that's now been able to reduce the lithium usage in batteries by 70%. That would have taken humans years to put that together. Equally, scientists at MIT, a new class of antibiotics, for the first time in over 60 years, thanks to AI. So they've been, again, taking huge database models, given it a prompt, and found an image. Oh, sorry, found a solution. In this case, I found an image, and I've selected number 2 here. And this is, you see, that created the image in real time. It just typed a little bit faster than I can type. I sped that bit up. But it created that image in about the time it takes me. So for those of you that have used Midjourney, you've seen this before. Next slide, please, Patrick. And there's the image there. And now if you press again, it'll give us the prompt I use. You can see I've even specified the camera, the lens, the ISO of the film, the type of photographer I'd like it to emulate. And that's the image it came back with. And if we go to the next slide, Patrick, we can see what that looked like if I just put in Kathakali dancer head and shoulders. And if you press the next, there we go. That's what it would come back with a simple command. One more press, please, Patrick. There's the prompt we used. And one more time will show us that image. And you can see the difference of a prompt. So we get the idea that prompts are incredibly important with AI. If If you just put in, you may prefer the image on the left, of course, and that's your prerogative, but you can see the detail is finer with the image on the right. Let's carry on, Patrick, to the next one. So this time I'm going to show you a video. Now, SORA is OpenAI's latest video release. It's still in beta. I queried an AI agent called Perplexity this morning, and it said there's a 47% chance of SORA being released to the public by May. So it's not far away. But I'm going to show you what happens when you put this prompt into SORA. If you click the next one for me, please, Patrick, and one more time should get that to play. There we are. This is a totally artificial intelligence generated image of a Victoria crowned pigeon. Now, what's fascinating about this is obviously the level of detail and the fact that we're now moving to a point where it's not looking like that obvious AI. And if this is the beta version of AI video from OpenAI, then we can imagine that the accelerated speed 1 year from now, it'll be difficult to tell the difference between the moving image that's real and the moving image that's created by AI. That's how fast artificial intelligence is moving, generative artificial intelligence is moving in this space. Onwards and upwards, please, Patrick. So where have we come from and where are we now? AI is nothing new. We would first coin the word AI, I think it was John McCarthy in 1956. Then we hit the first winter of AI in the mid-1970s. And that was, of course, because all these great ideas had no technology way of distributing it or delivering it. The first intelligent robot, the Waybot, was in 1972. Then you had Eliza, which was a chatbot that could pass the Turing test. Then we had the second winter of AI in the late 80s to the early 90s. And again, this is because we just simply didn't have the computation to deliver on the promise or the ideas. Late 90s, we had a computer beat the world chess champion. I remember that historic moment, Big Blue. 2002, AI encounters the Roomba vacuum cleaner. Then in 2019, OpenAI solved a Rubik's Cube, and it's worth Googling this to watch, with a single hand robot that could read the Rubik's Cube and solve it. It's a wonderful little video. And then really, Google now came along in 2012, and it sort of accelerated there. But we can see that artificial intelligence isn't a new concept, but it's only recently, with the advent of high-speed chips, that we were able to have the computation to deliver the video we just saw a moment ago of the Victoria crowned pigeon. And if we look at what they would, how that's seen through the lens of Gartner. So if we click to the next slide, please, Patrick, we can see in 2022, if you can see this slide on your screen, right down at the bottom there, you'll see generative AI. And you've got these sort of the hype cycle that it goes through, where there's the innovation trigger, and they've placed generative AI in that innovation trigger right there in 2022. Then it should move along to the right to the peak of inflated expectations. This is when we all think, that's it, this product's going to do something amazing, it's going to be awesome. We saw it with the internet, then the bubble, then it will burst. Then we move to the right and we got the trough of disillusionment, where we all go, oh, it wasn't what we expected. Then the slope of enlightenment, and then the plateau of productivity, where it comes in its own. This is what the hype cycle, according to Gartner. Now, if we look at the next slide, we showed a 2023 where it is, and we can see generative AI, and Patrick will very kindly point it out, right at the very top of the peak of inflated expectations, which means we should be heading towards the trough of disillusionment in 2024, which should all be falling flat on its face. For all the high talk, that's what should be happening. However, if we go to the next slide, we can see that in 1975 and in 1987, we've had our troughs of disillusionment. We've been through this cycle twice. So although Gartner is suggesting that this year or next year, it'll all fall flat on its face, I suspect it won't, because we've already had our AI winters, and that we are in fact in a position where AI can transcend straight into the plateau of productivity. That's just my theory, but I wanted to bring that out so you could see where we've come from and where we are. Next slide, please, Patrick. And we could see that the road to 100 million users, which is quite an ask, took Netflix 18 years, Instagram 2.5 years, and ChatGPT, which I'm sure you've all played with, it took them 2 months to reach 100 million users. And I'm a daily user of ChatGPT. Onwards and upwards. So this experiment, I studied artificial intelligence at Oxford University's SED Business School. And at the end of my course, I went rushing back into my own business and started talking about how we could implement AI into the business, and found myself philosophically at odds with some of the staff who I deeply respected and loved. So decided that probably wasn't the place to try and roll out AI. It was met with a lot of pushback. So I'd had a previous career in audio production in radio, made a lot of radio shows. So I thought, well, I could go off and make something using AI and kind of have a sandpit and a play. So I came up with this idea of making a podcast about an artificial intelligent family running right on Earth. And I called it Made in AI. All these images have been created using Midjourney. The show has been picked up in several charts now and in the top 10. It has its own copyright attached to it that's been accepted by the UK government's copyright protection board. And yeah, it's just been now picked up by one of the big book publishers, and they're turning it into an audiobook on Audible. So it's gaining some traction, and it was just a little idea for me to play with AI. And I had this idea, how could I use artificial intelligence to help me make a podcast? And what I learned on that journey, and I'll tell you up front, and I'll show you how I learned it. What I learned on that journey is when you add a little bit of AI here and there, it doesn't really add any value at all. You're just busy doing things that you could have done on your moleskin. Yeah, taking notes, moving things around, shuffling stuff, learning how to just may as well use moleskin. But when I fundamentally reimagined the entire workflow for making a radio program with AI at the core, that's when the value became apparent. Next slide, please, Patrick. So creating an episode of Made in AI, and I do ask you if you would have a listen to one of the episodes, listen to one of the more recent episodes where the technology is about as good as we're going to get now. So you'll hear what I can do, pushing AI all the way to its limits. So creating an episode of a traditional sitcom would look a bit like this. So you could press the button sort of 5 times, I think now, Patrick. On Monday, I'd come up with ideas and sketch out plots. On Tuesday, I'd write scripts. On Wednesday, the actors would record everything. On Thursday, I'd do a rough edit, and I'd have to re-record parts because what looks good on paper simply doesn't work when you go to edit it. We've all been there. And on Friday, I'd go into post-production. That's without a team of people having to okay everything I do, reject half of it, etc., etc. But in an ideal workflow, that's how it would go. Now let's look what happens when I replace the workflow with an AI workflow. And if we go to the next slide and press it twice, we'll see on Monday, I could come up with the idea and the plot. In fact, AI will do that for me. And I'll give you a little demonstration of how it comes up with ideas for the show. Then I can test the ideas in real time with the actors. So I feed the script directly into the software that has the actors act out the parts. And I could choose what I'm going to use and not use. And then all of that gets loaded up into my program, which means on Tuesday, I can produce it or add some music and sound effects, and it's done, which 3 more presses will show I've got 3 days I brought back from a production. And this isn't wishful thinking. This is something I've done more than 30 programs, made 30 shows, and it's proven out. I do this as a sideline hobby, so I get up early in the mornings, about 5:30, 6 a.m. So I have a couple of hours in the morning to make the show, and I can make a show in a week. So that's 10 hours to turn around a show. It would have been impossible for me to do that using a traditional method with actors. The obvious question is, am I stealing the jobs from actors? Well, this show would have never got made if I had to pay all the actors' fees. So this has been great for me creating a proof of concept for proving that the show could work. Next slide, please, Patrick. So let's have a look how it comes up with an idea. If you press again one more time, it should start putting in my message. So I'm going to ask it to create 5 plot ideas for my comedy podcast, Made in AI. And I'm explaining to them that they are in space, on a spaceship. So the ideas must be space related. Bearing in mind, ChatGPT now knows my program. It knows the show. It knows what it's about. So it's coming up with ideas now. I don't really like Bake Off. It's out of season. Gravity Olympics could be funny, but it's very visual. I love a good scam. So galactic timeshare scam is appealing to me. So what I'll do is I'll take that idea and I'll paste it in here and ask it to come up with some more, or come up with a plot to outline that. So now it's got the idea. It's going to write the plot for me. And here you can see it's doing an introduction. And then when they're getting the pitch about the timeshare scam and then the discovery, and it will put this together for me. And it will do this whilst I'm on my mobile phone out walking. So it will speak it to me. So it will say it to me so I can follow up and go and say, zoom in on this idea about the escape, and it will go into more detail. So I can keep on pushing the AI to give me more ideas. And there it's got the rough plot together for me. And that's pretty good. I'll have to do some work on it to make it comedy. So I'll copy that and keep that. And I'll thank it, as you should, because AI is a strange old beast. If you ask it to do mathematical equations, it's more likely to give you the correct answer if you ask it to frame it as a Star Trek question. So if you say, I'm on board the Starship Enterprise and the captain would like to know the answer to, it's more likely to get the answer right if you use Star Trek. The fascinating thing is absolutely nobody knows why. No one can answer that part of the question. So I'm always kind to my ChatGPT because it's databasing everything I do. And ChatGPT works better during the holidays. It works better when it's excited. No one knows why, but that's just the way it works. So now we've got a plot idea. Let's move to the next slide, please. You can see now the software I use where I can start to put the text in. What I'll do is I won't create the script now, but if you press play, I'll just give you a demonstration of text-to-speech where I can select my character 001, which is the father. I can write in here anything I like. And then I can have it voice that part. And of course, I could change the parameters.
What? Are you telling me this script has been written by AI?
And I could change those parameters and change the way it speaks and work my way through the script and have it voice all the different characters for the show. If we move on to the next slide, please, Patrick. So where are we seeing? In fact, let's just go back one slide. Let's just close out the Made in AI. I didn't realize that was the next slide typically. So I'm able to create this entire show, and I've given you a sort of a very top level look at the ecosystem I'm using. I can use ChatGPT to come up with ideas. If I want to get facts, I can move to software called Perplexity, which will give me citations and give me all the facts. It's like Google search without needing to click on a link and read the blogs. It will just bring all the information together. I can then bring that together into the plot. I could then ask it to write elements of the script, which could be, can you write Joe Biden addressing the nation after artificial intelligence has accidentally crashed the economy? And it will write that script as Joe Biden addressing the nation. And it does a very good job of pieces like that. So I'll have it create elements of the script. I then feed it into my software synthesis tool, and it will create all of those elements for me. It goes into a standard editor, and we're good to go. I can then publish that as an episode. So that's what I'm doing in AI. What are the big guys doing in AI? If we move to the next slide now, in generative AI, we can see where the money's flowing. Who are making the patents for this stuff? And I find this slide really interesting because Microsoft are clear leaders, and anyone that's aware of, oh, I'm getting a hand wave there. I'm not sure if that's someone want to input, but Microsoft are the leaders here, Samsung in second. What's really interesting, how far down Apple are. Yeah. And if we look at what's going on, you know, what was Apple's latest release? A pair of sort of ski goggles, and whereas Microsoft have got Copilot up and running, they've heavily invested in OpenAI to the point where Elon Musk is trying to sue OpenAI because he's so angry at it. You've got, you know, Samsung pushing, but Apple seem to have missed the boat a little bit enough that they've said they're going to cancel their entire Apple Car project and move everybody who's working on it over to look at AI. It'll be interesting that the next Apple release has no big fanfare. They're just going to do it online because the products apparently are just a little bit better and they've got no big AI push. So we can see where the patent releases are, which is, I think, is a good indicator of who's doing what in artificial intelligence and where we should be looking if we want to get inspiration. Next slide, please, Patrick.
Ooh.
So what's next for AI? We can jump straight in with the next slide, please, Patrick. Well, for me, what I'm looking at, and I think you can press this 5 times and it should, I'm now taking the project I just explained to you. Oh, we go back one slide. Beg your pardon. There we go. I'm taking the project I just explained to you, made in AI, and I'm pushing it now where the ideation plot is based on current trends and news. So rather than just me asking it to come up with ideas, it will start looking at what the trends and news are that are going on right now. It then creates that script in real time using a database I've created where it knows what's gone before and how people in the script speak. It can then personalize an episode depending on who's listening to it. So it looks at their social media feeds and what they're talking about and what they are into, and it brings in elements of that, places they're interested in, and they go and they live. And we all know that an episode that's set in your own street is going to be far more compelling than one that's set in a place you've not really heard of. And then once it's personalized it, I'm trying to move to a point where it can play the show out in real time. So it's not an episode that ends, it just keeps running like the Truman Show. So you as the listener can dip in for as long or as short as you want to and hear where the family are now, whether they're in space or whether they have ascended from the heavens and have arrived back on Earth and are taking over Earth as a cult, which will be the next season. So that's where I'm pushing AI in my experimentation. I hope this has shown you creatively what you can do within the realms of AI right now. As far as I opened up by saying I tried to bring this into the business and it was rejected. As far as in the business now, what this has shown me by creating these flows, working with databases and realizing AI is at the core, is the next slide is our, if we jump to the next slide, we've now created a AI assistant for social media for small businesses. We're just going to beta now, which enables a small business that doesn't have time to be active on social media for it to go out, look at trends, find those trends, create the posts, create the images. The small business owner ticks yes, edits or rejects, and then it schedules and posts them automatically online. 60% of small businesses in the UK are not using social media, but 25% of those businesses that do, those small businesses do, are getting most of their revenue from social media. And it may surprise you to know there are 5.6 million small businesses in the UK. So we're really hoping that we can help those businesses grow by giving them the space to carry on running their businesses, but use artificial intelligence to assist them. And that was because we designed this with AI at the core. So that's my presentation. I don't know if we have any time for questions. That's up to Patrick. I hope you found this useful in your work. As I said at the beginning, don't shoot the messenger. I'm not the purveyor of AI. I'm simply the user of AI who